Welcome to Blog 12, the vlog Blog 12. Right, and it is called Rafflesia Arnoldi, which is the stinking lily. It's the biggest flower in the world, I do believe. Biggest flower and the stinkiest flower. And there's something stinky about some of the things that we're going to be talking about, and I thought it was apt because it's named after Raffles, Sir Stamford Raffles, a man known for backstabbing, stealing other people's ideas, being economical with the truth, and mostly by being a rather pushy upstart with little formal education at all. In fact, he was a self-taught man, which kind of makes him more attractive to me. I think that's the fact that he pushed his way through the system and was on the make. I kind of admire that. In fact, a lot of the colonialists that came out into these regions were, well, pretty much yobs from nowhere in particular. They were out to make something of themselves, which, when one talks to local historians, and they are, of course, highly critical of the whole colonial enterprise, the thing that really roused them is the fact that these guys were just yobs, that they didn't have privileged upbringings, that they didn't have good breeding. These guys, they spoke to the local sultans as if they were just ordinary people. I don't know. To me, that's just plain snobbery. If you're a sultan, you are born into your position. You come from a good family. You've got a pedigree, and once people have heard that pedigree and accept that you really do descend from Alexander the Great, then they follow you, and of course, then you can take people's money because they're working the land, which of course is your land, because you're I don't know, you have some mystical relationship with it and with God and with, well, everything. And like I said, these guys came along and they just kind of walked in and somehow took over. It's, well, we can go into that, and there's a lot of things one can say about such things, but snobbery is at the heart of a lot of the business of empire. And Emily Innes, let's jump to Emily Innes. She was something of a snob, but she didn't admire snobbery in others. In fact, she got quite friendly with Raja Jacob, who was her neighbour at that time, and she admired the fact that he rolled up his sleeves. If he had sleeves, he would have rolled them up, and he would build fences, and he would fix stuff on his plantation, and he had plans, and he had business ideas, and he was a man of action, and he was a man of who didn't expect you to be treating him like a murderous, violent, tyrannical son of a sultan. Anyway, she regarded him as not a snob, and that was something that she found terribly admirable, as opposed to Raja Musa. Creepy character. Anyway, that's Emily Innes, and one finds that Emily Innes, she had her own forms of snobbery, but she was, like I said, she belonged to a later kind of generation of the colonialists, and they moved into this area of gathering together and pretending to be better than they were, and looking down upon the natives and what have you. Whereas these other guys, these earlier ones, they were kind of a different breed altogether, and they kind of got on. They kind of knew. They kind of understood. They were well versed in Malayan culture and the culture of the people that they lived amongst, and admired some of it. Thought there was room for improvement, of course, because that's what British Victorians were all about: improvement, advancement, drainage, amongst, well, quite often. Drainage was one of their big things. Drainage and education. Let's put it that way. So what happened then? Where were we? We were back with Abdul Samad, right? I just remembered. Kota Selangor. Why didn't you remind me? I kept calling it Kota Selangor, and it's Kuala Selangor. Right. Dear me. Forgive me if I've already said that. Right, now, we're back with Abdul Samad. Abdul Samad's in charge now. Tengku Kudin's taken over. The Mahdi, I say. Raja Mahdi, he's out of the game. And in fact, he's actually run off to Singapore to consult his solicitor. It's a thing. And because when the British kicked him out of Kuala Selangor, he complained that someone stole $1,000 from him. And he wants that back. And in fact, he wants compensation. He feels very much put out by these interventions of the British in the internal affairs of another sovereign nation. Right. So he's going the legal route. He knows that these Brits love trials and other such things. Anyway, Andrew Clark now is the governor, and he's looking for some way of selling the idea of, well, quite frankly, he's kind of thinking perhaps we should just annex all this because it would simplify everything. We just march in, and it's a shame because poor old Raja Yaqub was a bit skint. And so he decided that he should murder everybody on a boat coming out of Malacca and take all their money. It was a business thing. It was nothing personal. This just happened to take place at the same time as Admiral Shadwell was sailing through the Straits with the British fleet. I do believe it was the South China Seas fleet. And he happened to be a friend of Andrew Clark, and Andrew Clark said, well, that's jolly convenient that you're here. Could you just drop off, just move up the river and park yourselves outside of Langut where Abdul Samad has his stana? And, ever to oblige, the fleet went up there and parked. And Andrew Clark then requested that Abdul Samad come to a meeting to discuss the piracy that's going on. Abdul Samad absolutely terrified. Everybody's running for cover. They know what these guys can do. They can reduce these wooden buildings that comprised of their settlements and so on. They can reduce them to matchwood, and it was generally thought to be a bad thing to happen to you. It's very difficult to recover from that sort of thing, and everybody runs, and you lose your servants, and you lose your livestock, and you lose your mind because being hit in the head by a cannonball can have that effect. So Abdul Samad was absolutely terrified, and he knows that they're after his sons because they've long suspected that they've been up to no good. And so what he does, he may be terrified, but he's smart. So he arrests all the pirates and finds witnesses that can exonerate his son, saying, no, we didn't see any of them. We didn't see Raja Yaqub there, and of course he tells all the pirates to say, you don't say anything about that and I'll see you right. We'll get out of that. Just, keep my sons out of it. And of course, he's the Sultan. Ooh, you grovel to them. They have power over you. And maybe he is the one guy that can save you in the face of the fleet. This British can be very ruthless. So, this is the man for you. And so the British say, okay, well, we've got to have a trial. We've got to see this due process taking place. And so they set up a trial, and they have due process taking place. And the witnesses and let's not just say they're somewhat intimidated by the Bugis. I think Terrified is the word, otherwise they're going to get their tongues ripped out if they don't say the right thing. So the witnesses do what they're supposed to do, and the pirates do what they're supposed to do, and the pirates all get condemned to death, and it's up to Abdul Samad to arrange how this is going to be dealt with. And the British say, "Oh, hang on, we should query this. Can we question them?" Abdul Samad, oh, dear me, it slipped my mind. I executed them all last night. Yeah, they were all stabbed to death, and they were. As you know, he was leaving no ends left unturned. But by the way, can I have a British advisor? Because, I'm having problems with these people. It's very hard for a poor man like me. We're poor people here. We don't have the manpower to patrol the straits and keep everything working properly. But you do. We need advice. We need British help. So send me an advisor. Now then, Andrew Clark can't actually sell this back to the Colonial Office. He's been told to solve the problem, but they don't really want any of this thing called intervention. Because it cost money, cost the British money. They said, and it wasn't really earning Britain much money in the region anyway. Singapore was the only place that was actually making money, but everywhere else was just costing them money. They didn't want any of that money and trouble. No. But Andrew Clark, he says, well, we've got Teku Kudin, who's got his solicitor with him, J.G. Davidson, and they're working well, so we'll make him official, sort of, and we don't have to pay or anything like that. We make him official, and a bit of a promise of some future contracts will help J.G. Davidson, and he'll do, the right thing. He'll keep us up to date on what's going on. And I've got a young chap called Frank Swettenham, and he's 22 years old. He's just passed his Malay examinations, and I think it would do him well to go and talk with be Abdul Samad's personal assistant, and then report back to us what's going on and keep us all informed. Well, of course, that sounds like a very good idea. Frank Swettenham immediately calls himself the British resident. Everybody in Singapore says, "No, you're not. You're just the assistant." Well, okay. Anyway, and I'll just show you this up. Right, this is Frank Swettenham's biography. 700 pages. Weighs a ton. Weighs an absolute ton. So, as you can imagine, Frank Swettenham must have become a rather important man here in Malaya. And his career started off with him being the assistant to Abdul Samad. Abdul Samad thought it rather amusing that his advisor should be so young, but he took it all in good stead, as apparently Abdul Samad always did. He was a funny guy. And Swettenham and him would go off snipe shooting, and Abdul Samad would tell Swettenham all sorts of stories. So Frank Swettenham was very influenced by this man, and he came to believe that the Malays were the custodians of the land, and that all the others were just there to exploit things, which sort of set him on a path of the future, which he saw as he wanted to be the man that developed the nation. And in many respects, much of his attitudes, and he's left a huge legacy in terms of the politics and in terms of the infrastructure, and it's we were going to make this documentary about Isabella Bird's travels and the residents and so on. And the next one, we thought, if we were going to hang around any longer, hey, it would be great to do Frank Swettenham's, because he's such an important figure here. Though, of course, nobody knows about him. Very unfashionable figures are these guys nowadays, but very important because they've left their mark, and you really cannot understand what's going on in this country without some idea about what Frank Swettenham was all about. Frank Swettenham, though, was a bit of a cad. He smoked his cigar like this. A cigarette he always had like this. Smoked it like that. I said, terribly caddish. women were all over him, and he was all over them too. Drove his wife insane, literally. Don't think he had any children. No, he didn't have any children, and he got married again when he was about 80, as one does. Frank Swettenham. Recommend everybody go and find out a bit more about him. Well, so he's off snipe shooting, and J.G. Davidson, Isabella Bird was quite taken with him, only by reputation. I don't think she actually met the guy, but she thought he was, by all accounts, a jolly decent chap. He spoke Malay, he understood the people, and he got on well with them, and he was a great assistant to Tengku Kudin, who of course was, the man that the British really trusted. Yes, well, naturally, the British trusted Tengku Kudin more than they trusted J.G. Davidson. They were rather suspicious of what he was all about, because he had huge financial interests in Malaysia, in the mines, and also in private armies. In fact, he wanted to raise funds on the British stock market to create a corporation which sounded not entirely different to the old British East India Company, with the right to raise an army, a standing army. As one wanted. In fact, I think he was wanting to pay off all those Pahang troops that he'd promised to pay the Sultan of Pahang for, and it was the arguments about where that money was going to come from and such like that had him falling out with Tengku Kudin, and Tengku Kudin under these circumstances was feeling a bit out of it, because with the British kind of running things and having to run things by the British, he wasn't getting the money that he kind of thought he should be getting. He wasn't getting the control over the place at all. Abdul Samad and his sons were smirking in the background. They'd kind of sidestepped old Tengku Kudin, and Abdul Samad had finally got people who understood how he wanted the place to be run. He wanted this modern administration put in place. Finally, the British might well be able to give it to him. Of course, he was terrified of them, but at the same time, he felt safer with the British. He told Isabella, he said, whenever I had a council meeting with my chieftain's son, I never thought I would actually come out at the other end alive, because there was always an argument, and everybody's quick with their krises coming out. It was always a dangerous moment, where with the British there, he felt safe. In fact, the next block I'll tell you about Isabella going off and with Bloomfield Douglas to the one of the inaugural meetings of the Council of States that was set up for Abdul Samad. They dressed him up in finery and so on and so forth, and which he never really used to dress like, But he felt safer, or said he did. Maybe just to be polite to her, because she was British. And right, what's next then on it? Oh yes, Davidson, yes. Oh yes. Whatever happened to Raja Mahdi? Yes, now he's off in Singapore trying to get his money back, and somehow the British, they kind of remember him chopping people's heads off and slitting throats, and this is a troublemaker. And whatever happens, somehow he gets himself arrested and he dies in jail of TB. Thus ends his career. Saif Mashur, I said, his career moves into another gear, having been brought up in Borneo, of all places, Pontianak, and starting off his career fighting the Brooks, and then moving on to Malaya to fight the British and anybody that really wanted to pay him. But he becomes a respectable man, and he is invited to sit on the Council of State. So he becomes an official ruler. He's one of the ruling elite of Selangor. So he does well for himself, and he becomes rather friendly with the British in a strange sort of way. So, all right, I think we've covered it all. If we haven't, you'll just have to. Yes, that's right. You'll just have to read the blog because I can't remember anymore, and my mind is going crazy. So, like, subscribe, share. There you are. Like, subscribe, share, like, share, subscribe. One of those things. Go to the website, laurasgray.net, slash, I should say. Oh, how many times have I said this now? Travel without capital T. Right. Anyway, there's a link down below. All right, go and read it, and I'll carry on with Isabella's journey because we're on that boat with her, remember, and she's going off to the council meeting with Abdul Samad. That's at the next one. Right, bye.